right here to my bottom left shoulder. You can see the 115. And element 115 is a kind of an interesting element that I want to get into. But Bob Lazaar is like kind of the frontier of this, right? I don't know, when was it, in the 80s, I think, that he had some famous interviews that he claims to have worked and reverse engineered on crash space craft relating to Roswell and whatnot. But anyway, we'll just go from there.
Yeah, and Bob Lazar's the guy that like kind of brought Area 51 like basically to fruition in pop culture and everything else. I mean, before that, I want to say it was 87. It was definitely late 80s. He basically is like the guy who brought that out. Like people now, like, Area 51 is a tourist destination now, and like, it's in movies and all this and that. And
he didn't actually claim to have worked in Area 51. In fact, a little subset of Area 51, which was, I think, called S4, and you go around this mountain, and the claim is that there is something so top secret that their hangar that they created was actually camouflaged to look like the mountainside of the mountain that it was around. And you got to go around, and I don't know how many miles it is, but I would guess at least like 30 miles from Area 51, something like that. You go down there, and supposedly, according to the government, that place definitely doesn't exist. Area 51, yeah, they now say, yeah, it exists. It was like a place that we stash our like spy planes and la-di-da. Never any reference to extraterrestrial spacecraft, though. So there's a lot of things that Bob Lazaar did and said that have come to fruition. And I think for people to keep dismissing some of the things he's saying is, I think, being a little negligent, in my opinion.
2013 was the year, so I was grossly mistaken.
See, yes, I had it right.
2013 what?
Is when the government came out and made Area 51 existed, but this is for U2 test pilot shit.
Independence Day came out way before that.
Yeah, well, it's because it was all, like, it's when the government admitted that it was really a thing. But it was interesting about the whole S4 thing that some guy was
Will Smith
about.
showed me.
Was it like it's like you can Google, like, what's the name of that mountain? Some guy starts with
it starts with a P, I think. I know you're talking about right by Area 51.
It's like Papoose or something like that. I'll look it up.
Papoose, maybe.
Yeah, it's like to get to S4 from Area 51, there's like roads there, and there's no other, like, if you look like on an aerial view, there's no other roads to get to those roads. So it doesn't make, like, it's like the only place going to the S4 is to Area 51 back and forth, right? And there's no other connecting road. So
why is that road there if it just leads to like the side of a mountain?
Yeah, in the middle.
It's pretty weird.
I mean, if you look at the U.S. military, U.S. Air Force test area in Nevada is huge. It's like, I mean, I'd be spitballing here, but 15-20% of state of Nevada, huge section, and this little square in the middle of it's Area 51. So that little square is another huge area. So this is like, you're like miles and miles and miles from anything except for like a little touristy town there.
Well, and that S4 was supposedly like underground too, right? You go into the side of the mountain, supposedly, and then it's like an underground. So how do they build that underground shit? That's what I was thinking in my head. But I remember reading a while back, and I can't say what I was reading. I can't remember, but it was a whole thing where like evidence that government can easily build something in plain sight, and people just never know this shit happens. Now you think, well, they're way out in the cuts, and this one, no big deal. Who the hell is going to see that? So I think it is feasible that it could exist, for sure.
There's something
for sure. Because when people are building something, it's not like they're wearing jackets that say government agents.
I'm building something.
It just looks like any asshole building a building. But plus, also, yeah, like you said, also, nobody's fucking out there watching. It's not like there's neighbors. So yeah, you can get away with shit. And it was like, the S4 was that was like super underground subsect of the whole Area 51. Like Area 51 people weren't even allowed in the S4, right? Not everybody. You gotta, that's like its own clearance.
Right. From what I understand, the claim is that that place specifically, S4, is for the crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft and doing the science on that. And you have to think, okay, Bob Lazaar, since a child, was a phenom in terms of physics and engineering and all these feats. And so he was at Los Alamos National Laboratory as a particle physicist, and also had a lot of expertise in, electronics and whatnot. And so he claims he was recruited to go and reverse engineer a crashed spacecraft from we don't know where, right? And so that's the beginning of these claims in the 80s. But the story we'll get into is so deep that it turns into physical evidence that we see today. Is quite amazing.
Really
Some
good.
of the knocks, some people find it hard to believe that, they say his background is kind of foggy, kind of gray. They're not sure if it's, credible, believable, like where he went to school, because they kind of scrubbed him, So there's not a lot of records of like where he said he went to engineering school. What was an MIT? I forget where the hell he went. But when you search him up, it's like it's hard to find any of these credentials. And then people say, oh, it's hard to believe that they sought him out and recruited him for this, specific research at S4 when maybe he didn't have legitimate, college credentials. Like, why would they seek this dude out? So yeah, those are some of the knocks on him, like the unbelievers. Dude gets a lot of hate.
But he definitely was a scientist at a national laboratory prior to this.
He seems like a fucking nerd to me. He looks smart as shit.
Hey, I mean, dude, like he did this pretty awesome thing. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard this interview, but he like for fun, like strapped a jet engine on one of his like truck. And it made the local newspaper. And in the local newspaper, it mentioned that he worked at Los Alamos Lab. So like that was like that he was able to find that. And then he was basically being just harassed by the FBI and the CIA when he spilled the beans. And he ended up was able to prove that he worked there because there was like a picture on the wall, if I'm not mistaken, in the office that they just had failed to pull down. Because it's crazy, because back then, man, it's like you go into an office and you shred one file and people disappear. Now it's like, it's impossible. Like even if you're someone who's not on the internet very much, there's digital trail, kingdom come, but back then they just walked into these places, walk into the school, walk into this just to screw with him and just shred his shit. Crazy.
Side note, from what I'm seeing here, he attended a community college in LA. I don't see any credentials on him attending a higher level college.
For real?
That's what I'm seeing, man. I don't know if
he went somewhere back east, dude. I remember from either the Netflix thing or his Rogan appearance. Let me see.
He has his own. He has his own business.
Did you look up his wiki? It didn't say anything
it's like
about.
Your wiki says the same thing, is that he went to the community college.
That's it. Just community college.
Junior college, as they say. Yeah.
Well, I mean, first of all, he must have had horrible math teachers, because I heard that the math teachers at community colleges
is all.
And second of all, I too thought that he had gone to some other college and then he got erased.
Maybe that's true. Maybe I'm not remembering that other part.
Yeah, because I remember him saying, he's talked about a couple different places that he went for a short period of time. One of them's back east. I can't fucking remember where.
He probably just didn't finish a degree or something like that, right? If he's not going to have evidence of being alumni or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be kind of a stigma too with really smart dudes. Steve Jobs was oh, the school is for fools, and he's dropped out, and then what do you call it when is it surveying a class when you go there for no credit? You sit there.
Auditing.
Auditing. He's like, well, he sat through a bunch of classes he thought were interesting in community college level, and then him and a buddy in his parents' garage like created Apple. Dude, a lot of shit that happened in the 80s, it created in the 80s is super state of the art. We like laugh at now. Like, oh,
Pagers.
Atari.
Yeah, nice voicemail nerds.
Yeah. VHS.
VHS tapes, old laser disc.
Cassette tapes for music.
Yeah.
Video cameras.
A lot of studios still have tape technology in them nowadays, like state-of-the-art studios, because you cannot recreate the tape sound. You need a tape. So you could put the music on the tape and then play that tape, and it sounds different than any electronic version of a tape would sound like. But anyways, Bob Lazaar.
Hey, so I'm looking like just a straight up Google of Element 115. It says discovered in 2003, right?
Yeah.
Because they describe it as that was the first time they had, I guess, recreated it, synthesized it in 2003. But is that just a complete fucking slap in the face to old Bobby L? Because he was talking about this shit years ago.
I mean, part of what he predicted a long time ago is
so they don't credit him for any type of discovery.
Well, he's never claimed one way or another if he actually worked with Element 115. A lot of people feel like he doesn't want to say he did because that would be like bad news for him. Like he could literally get killed. But it seems feasible that if his claims are true, that he was reverse engineering the spacecraft, that Element 115 was the almost like a fuel, but it's not really fuel, right? There's no exhaust on these craft as he claims. And this
this energy source.
Yeah, it's basically an element that at that time when he talked about it, decades before, was not on the periodic table. It didn't exist as an element. And so when you reference 2003, a joint team of Russians and US scientists were doing particle collisions, and they collided calcium with some other weird element. I can't remember the other element, is way up there.
Oh,
and
okay.
So they collided them about, almost pretty fast, right? Not like speed of light fast, but fast enough. And it created a fusion process at that level in which it created the element of 115. And so they've created about 100 particles of 115 up to this point in time. It's expensive, but it's actually ironically less expensive than some of the lighter elements at say 113 or 114, which it doesn't make much sense because usually the heavier elements are harder to produce, the synthetic ones that don't exist naturally here on Earth. And so because it's so hard to produce, right, through a particle accelerator, Bob Lazaar's argument was that that element cannot be an element that is native to our planet, because clearly if it was, we would have figured it out by now, and it's so hard to produce. So therefore it must come from a different type of planet somewhere else in the universe for which that element exists naturally.
Fuck yeah.
And so then of course in 2003 they show it's this thing, right? And maybe just with our elements and the way our Earth works, that's just not a thing that is natural to our environment, but somewhere else maybe it is, right?
That's crazy. So they say, so they have synthesized it. Are we fucking doing anything with it other than fucking staring at it under a microscope?
Well, we're definitely studying it because it ends up having a lot of properties that are intriguing to the future of potential technology that we can use. And so we have to remember this particle, this atom, I guess, whatever you want to call it, is super unstable. When it's created, its half-life is like I don't even remember, 0.3 seconds or something. Yeah, so
they're and gone in less than a second.
Yeah, it's created and it disappears in less than a second. But it's definitely a thing. And it has many isotopic states, which is basically saying like, okay, we could change the arrangement of the number of protons and neutrons. However, this element shows a lot of promise in the sense that it has this special property in which it can possibly fall into what's called the island of stability, meaning that there is a combination of the protons and neutrons, from what I understand, that allows it to have the potential to be stabilized, to the fact that you could stabilize it for days, months, years, even. We don't really know. If we were able to figure out that configuration, then it has the real potential to provide a platform for which we can do things that we cannot do at all right now on Earth. It would like revolutionize our world.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when they were when like just, you know, when people talk about, you know, I want to say Bob Lazaar did as well, but like when in documentaries I've seen where they're talking about how like element 115 gave them the ability to cut through space and time. And then it reminded me of the, you know, I guess remember, but the Fayetteville UFO
Yeah.
what do you call it, experience,
Right.
they were, you know, he was in the field, and that's how what he saw it would appeared like there was like a tear in the sky and something appeared, and that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, whoa, shit, you know, like that's right, like, you know, a lot of things start to kind of come, like, I don't know, start to come together with the Bob Lazaar stuff. I feel like it's like, what are those charts called where you write something in the middle and then you branch out all the different like ideas, right? I feel like when the Bob Lazaar
brainstorming,
like, yeah, you brainstorming. You type it. There's a name for that chart, I think. But with Bob Lazaar and like, especially like with him, it's been like recent years with the Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan and the interview, and what was it, the fucking what was that, like Corbell's documentary, like with that kind of happening, it like all these other UFO sightings, you can kind of like, you can see where like some of the stuff they're saying is just completely different. It doesn't mean they're cuckoo, it just means that maybe it's a, you know, fuck off, for all we know, a different species of extraterrestrial. But like, there's a lot of stuff in Bob Lazaar where it's like, you're like, holy shit, there's that parallel there and there's that parallel there. And a lot of these stories are old too, you know, like they're well before these interviews came out and stuff.
Right. And so if his claims of reverse engineering these craft, and he claims the element 115 was crucial, it isn't even like the same thing. We have to remember, it's like, okay, what do? We put the gas in the car or we charge our battery. Not like that. This thing is just an element that is in a reactor almost, and it just, you touch it and it turns and everything happens. And his claim is also, like you're saying, it's like it creates like an anti-gravitational field, space-time, in which the space-time in front of you is basically opened up and you can travel through it extremely fast, you know, violating speed of light laws and whatnot. And it seems to be consistent with a lot of the behaviors that we see through these all these UFO sightings, right? They are exhibiting behavior that defies laws of physics, and therefore they would need some type of propulsion system that warps space-time around itself in order to make those maneuvers. But yet we don't know how that happens. We can't explain it, and therefore Bob Lazaar, he don't listen. He doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Like, what he seems to be explaining exactly how these things are behaving, I feel like.
Yeah, they probably didn't like his rollout. They're like, fucking, he's claiming it first. They wanted it for themselves, and they're like, we're gonna fucking defame this dude. He's taking our thunder.
Like, almost like he snitched too, right? In a way.
And like he snitched. Like, they didn't want it let out yet. And then when they do want to let it out, this agency or whoever the fuck's in charge, like, they want the fucking thunder. You know, they want the big red carpet rollout and all the credit and the hoopla. You know, they want to hit the pinata last, bro.
Yeah, it's like we've discussed this a few times. Like, you know, the real legitimate, motivation for for keeping that shit secret is the military. And like, if it gets backwards engineered, where the power lies in the world, right? Just if like the Russians, even today, were able to reverse engineer that equipment into being able to be. I mean, there's probably endless possibilities if that physics is unlocked.
Well,
I put right at the top of the food chain militarily, right? So that's why they keep that shit secret.
Isn't it a little ironic though that like Roswell happened, and then there's these connections with Area 51 and S4 and all this stuff with the crashed spacecraft. And what I also saw is in 1948, a year after Roswell, something similar happened in Russia. Right. And at that time, of course, Russia and US were really the remaining superpowers at the time, and we got into Cold War and all that stuff. But isn't it weird that there are claims of a similar Roswell incident? It's a very famous incident in Russia, and I'm not going to try to attempt to say the name of it, but you could Google it. Around the same exact time, post World War II, right? And then it ends up being Russians and Americans who are competing for space rights when all the Cold War is happening. And then in 2003, simultaneously, US and Russian scientists co-discover the existence of element 115. It seems to be a recurring theme. And could it be that it's because both of those countries happen to have access to these technologies that we could reverse engineer? Like it was a race. Who could reverse engineer this shit the quickest, basically?
Probably.
What if we both figured out a way to shoot that shit down? You know? Or how about this even better? What if, because we're the two biggest nuclear powers, we both were visited by extraterrestrials around the same time to like try to we'll pump the brakes, guys, and we just blew them up.
we shot them out of there. They're like, hey guys, fuck you.
Like this.
Yeah, right about now they're finally getting the message back to their home planet, like those fools shot our spacecraft down. Let's go get them.
They got 9 years from now, dude, when they finally get there. Well, good. We deserve it.
Well, I mean, there's evidence of that, right? Like the incident in LA, right, back in the day, where they were shooting at shit in the sky for hours at night. And supposedly with this Russian incident, they actually saw a cigar-shaped UFO on their radar at their only ballistic missile testing site at that time in the whole country. And they got it and they shot it supposedly. And supposedly that's how they got the craft, is they actually got that. And there was supposed beams on board too when they shot it. Now that's just, you'd have to go, we could have a whole longer conversation about that one, but
like green beans, like food beans. I'm not trying to be facetious. I just
some type of non-human beings.
Beans.
Yeah. Fuck. Beans? You mean green beans?
That's what I heard, bro. And I was like, all right.
There's a lot of beans on there, man. That's what they wanted. They
Russians
needed those beans.
Hey, these Russians, they're still
Jack in the beanstalk.
Full of holes, dude. I'm not falling for this bean bullshit. I'll tell you right now, dude. No.
Bro, when you said beans, string beans, green beans, I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
A little tripping.
Yeah, I heard beans and I was like, all right.
That's something I would say, bro. That's fucking
lima beans.
Yeah, you know, I mean, maybe they ate beans, dude. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Soylent Green.
I mean, I just couldn't hear you, man. I was trying to figure out what the fuck you're talking about.
I was trying to figure out what the fuck you were talking about.
You're like, all right, man. Like, okay, cool. You know, he's a mathematician. I guess there are beans in that thing. I'm not gonna say shit.
That shit was funny. So I think it was in the Lazaar doc when he started talking about like if we can control, like synthesize and get control of this element 115 and use it, it's gonna be like it's gonna re-evolutionize fucking everything, military. It's gonna be awesome, but yet like fucking crazy dangerous, right?
Well, I'm not going to claim to be a crazy expert on this particle physics stuff or chemistry stuff.
No, I'm just asking, was he saying something like to that effect?
Absolutely.
Right?
And not
like
just
if
him,
we
even
figure this out and we're able to replicate it and use it to our advantage, it's gonna like leapfrog our technology, but also like it's gonna naturally, just like a lot of our technology, it's gonna put us in a dangerous fucking place.
Yeah, absolutely. But even some mainstream scientists nowadays will say the same thing, right? Because of our knowledge of how the element 115 behaves to what we know right now. But what do we use for like nuclear reactions for the most part, right? We use plutonium, and plutonium is it decays very, very slow. And so, plutonium is going to be here for a long, long time. But the 115 has properties that could potentially replace the plutonium use. Like we won't necessarily need to use that old technology anymore to produce the same nuclear reactions that are even more powerful than what we can do with what's known with plutonium. So it has a lot of potential. It's just so unstable. And think about it. There's only been 100 of them ever documented, ever, right?
You're talking about 100 single particles, right?
Yeah,
Like
100.
Oh, what?
I mean, think
Really?
about every breath you take. There's like millions of things going into you, and so that fact makes it's expensive right now too, right? To create the process of making one of these is extremely hard and requires a lot of energy and money. But if you could find that sweet spot in that island of stability that I was referencing earlier, then it's potential that you could kind of freeze it and stabilize it and then just start duplicating it. And then you'd have a whole shitload of this,
That's great. And you said it only lasts 3 seconds?
Yeah. So, no, not 3 seconds, like point 3 seconds.
It's half-life, so it's like 0.6 seconds it exists. Like
that's not even a real amount of time. That's retarded. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do they even
yeah, what are we talking about?
How do they even like recognize it? Like what kind of equipment do they use to recognize a single particle for 0.6 of a second? You know what I mean?
Well, they have some amazing technology in those particle accelerators, right? I mean, amazing, that can capture. We're going to collide two particles at 99% the speed of light, and let's see what happens. And then what happens is, bow, there's all this shit that just goes bow all over the place, explodes, and all those things are things. And that's where really the quantum physics comes from. Is you think of an atom with a proton and a neutron and electrons and all that shit. Each of those little things are made up of hundreds of things. And all those things we're trying to figure out. So when they collide them, this particular interaction with calcium and whatever the hell the other one was, it creates this other atom. Because usually what happens is they explode. But in that case, some of it explodes, but then some of it goes and it binds together like a magnetic force and creates a new atom just for a very, very brief period of time, right? And then it just decays real quick, which is not typical when you collide atoms. They usually just go blow and they blast apart, right? It's pretty crazy to think about that. That's part of a reality.
Dude, I'm curious. So how much effort, how much time, effort is spent into developing that 0.3 seconds that they get of testing? You know what I mean? Like, how much time did it take for them to experience, oh, we just got 0.3 seconds of I don't know, seeing it? Do they see it? Do they even see it?
Yeah, it's all on the computer.
If it only lasted that long, it's like, okay, well, I'm good.
Well,
I don't need to
imagine
fucking do this again.
well, imagine a camera taking like 1,000 screenshots in like less than a second, right? Like that
Yeah.
of the interaction of what happens when they collide. It's basically what you're seeing. And so how much time goes into it? Well, now they know how to do it every time, but the first time was almost kind of luck. But it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to speed things up really, really fast and collide them in a chamber. Some of these particle colliders are miles long, miles, and they speed them up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like at Stanford, it's linear, so it goes one direction. But at these other ones, like in Europe and whatnot, they go around in big circles.
Yeah.
They cover over different countries and all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of money, right? A lot of resources, a lot of energy, time spent. But that's the frontier right now, right? If you want to learn some new shit, that's where we're at. We can't just
Crazy about though, the thing about it, it's all that time and effort creating this atom or this element that in the future could be space travel, could be how we power all of our cities, how we
it's
the foundation for everything we do.
I would say all the theories around space travel, I bet you that 115 is probably one of the key things. That's what's in the flux capacitor. That's what's in the flux capacitor, bro. Fuck, I bet. And what was Doc Brown doing? Stealing fucking plutonium from the Libyans, dude.
Yeah, dude, time travel, dude.
That's probably element 115. Doc Brown had a whole suitcase of element 115.
Did you ever see
waiting to blow up?
Did you ever see Endgame? Avengers Endgame? At the end, it's like in the middle of it, they're talking about space travel, and they're talking more of the actual science of like time traveling, time travel, not space travel. And
same thing.
They're like, so Back to the Future's bullshit, and everybody's like upset about it.
Hell yeah! Oh, I haven't seen that. Fun.
Yeah, that's good. Dude, those Marvel movies are pretty good, but I digress.
Are they though? Are they?
Oh, I love them, dude. I love my. Yeah.
Are they visibly entertaining? Sure, but are they great?
Dude, the money was poured into them to have good cinematography, soundtrack, heroes. It's just a hero movie. Kids love them though. All right,
dude. You know what I just revisited for the first time in a long while? I watched Dances with Wolves like yesterday. Fuck,
bro, I watched that shit like a month ago. It's amazing,
dude. It's so much better now than it was. I don't know when the last time I fucking watched it. Probably in some span of my 20s, probably. Oh, dude. Yeah, I realized, dude, like I've never said like I'm a hater of the dude, but I think I'm fucking like a full-blown fanboy of Kevin Costner. I don't think I've ever hated anything that guy's done.
Field of Dreams.
Love it.
Dances with Wolves, dude. I used to watch all the time when I was a kid because my dad was fucking loved that movie. And yeah, it's a great movie. It's epic, awesome dude. Movie.
It's fucking epic. I don't know who. I feel like I can't recall if my mom did. I feel like it was one of my uncles, but I feel like one of my older family members drugged me to that shit when it came out in theaters. Like as a little kid.
It's a long ass movie too.
Long ass movie, and I'm not catching any of that shit when I was a kid, dude. That shit came out in like 1990, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just.
I mean, just kids. Like it's just the whole concept of him like being on his own in the middle of the plains.
Yeah, the weight of it all. Like it was cool to see, like, and not even realizing at the time being a kid, not realizing making the move. Like, yeah, I'm watching it thinking like, oh yeah, they're out in fucking, I don't know where, Wyoming, who knows where they are. Oh yeah, look, Buffalo. Oh yeah, look, dude. They had to make that shit happen. Did you see those open wide shots of nothingness? And they're just out there like, where's the guy?
Damn, I haven't seen that movie in a while, man. I should watch it.
You should, man. I watched it like probably like springtime. I watched it. I said I watched some movie. And
dude, the Buffalo scenes, bro. The Buffalo Stampede scenes, like they had to have just tracked this herd of buffalo, and they're like, we have to get this shot. We got one day.
I'd be willing to bet that they CGI'd some of it. They figured out a way to do it because
in 90.
I don't think that there are that many buffaloes. But I mean, now their numbers starting to go up. I mean, like there's a couple shots that are like,
oh, I know which one's exactly what you're talking about. When they're really pulled back and they kind of look like ants, sort of. When they're yeah, for sure.
It's like in the million.
Yeah, it looks crazy. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands.
Dude, like, you guys ever play Red Dead Redemption?
Oh, please, bro. Hell yeah. I got number 1 and 2.
So I played that shit so much my last long trip that
the second one?
I pulled over. We were driving up to Yellowstone with the family, and the new one. And I like pulled over at the side of the road, and like the sounds of the planes, and then you could see the planes going forever, in the middle of Wyoming. And like the sounds, like I had like a flashback from Red Dead Redemption, dude.
Word.
Dude, that game is so sick. And the new shit with like the new ones, PS5 and Xbox and stuff, the controllers have speakers in them. And so like when it's raining or some shit like that, you could like feel and hear the rain on the controller coming out. It's like a whole nother level, dude.
The controller gets wet, you feel like condensation.
Yeah, that's the new shit.
That's the next shit.
Ready Player One, man. The metaverse
farts, you smell it.
That's crazy.
Now, what's crazy about that shit, like with that element 115, is that like, they, in one of the comments that I saw was they were talking about it, was that like there's like different categories of societies. Like category 1 is like complete control over your planet, like the ability to change weather and change planetary events and stuff like that. So we're nowhere near that. We'd be 10,000 years away from that. Yeah. And then the secondary was when you're like basically colonize your entire universe, your entire galaxy. And then the third category was when you're like cruising the stars, man, like at Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
I think the third one was galactic, and the second one was maybe like the solar system or something like that. I thought,
right, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like, ironically, that idea came from a guy that I believe was Russian when all that incident in 1948 first happened, and he saw these things happening, and he said, how can it be that this is happening? And he theorized that there must be some extraterrestrial life on other planets, and those are the different types of civilizations. But then what are we? We're not even type 1, dude. Well, we're like type 0. We get our energy from plants.
Yeah, no doubt. I thought what was interesting about that was like they were saying that like if we were able to stabilize 115, and that'd be such a humongous technological leap that we'd very rapidly move up in the categories. It's possible to very rapidly because of what we could do with that. It would change kind of our whole perspective of physics. That's why, like, I mean, that's, to me, that's why this element is like so insane, because that's like the second, third order effects of us being able to stabilize that element is like, manipulating the space-time continuum, right? Manipulating, like, time travel becomes a thing,
Well, and we have to remember space-time is part of our model. It's a huge, and that's how we understand the universe. And I would like to think that it's probably that way with stuff we probably don't know yet. But when you have a massive object, this is the dilemma, right? If you have a really massive object, it can bend space-time. But if you don't have a massive object, it's very hard to bend space-time. And so theoretically, right, like a black hole could bend space-time because it's almost like infinite in mass. It's so massive in such a small space that it just sucks in everything. The gravitational force is so extreme. But if you were able to do that without the mass required through some manipulation of elements, then game over, right? And I think, like you said, once we figure that part out, how to manipulate space-time, the rest of this shit is not going to be that difficult to figure out. It's that huge leap. I think it's like that quantum leap in which we have to figure that out. And we're like, oh, we're gonna use solar panels, and we're gonna get some energy, and from there we'll eat some lettuce, and we're smart. Yeah, we can put some satellites out there. Yeah, we might be able to send a robot to Mars. Now, this is all progress, of course, but not to that level. You have to send. How long it take for the thing to get to Mars? Years, right? Years. What if you could just be like, boop, press the button, and you're on Mars in like 1 second? You know what I'm saying? How crazy would that shit be?
One thing I was thinking about, interesting conundrum is with shooting. When you're shooting, when they're developing new ammo and they're changing the calibers on for long range shooting, you always sacrifice something for something else. For instance, if you want to have more stopping power, right, you want to, you're going to get around it's going to be its ballistics are not going to be as favorable as something with less stopping power when you're talking about distance, right? So you're like making these like little you make the cartridge a little bigger, you add a little bit of powder, you change the shape of it, do all these things, and whenever you get one thing that's more positive, you have to look at it, going to sacrifice something else, right? So they're always trying to
balance
the most lethal rifle or whatever, or most accurate. So like it's kind of the same thing what's been going on with like our environmental progress, quote unquote. So great, like we switched to battery power because of the emissions. Maybe it's better, but also it's got to be considered that batteries run out and they die and they get dumped somewhere, and then like you're looking at like like destroying the water tables, right? And you have to figure out a fair way to dispose of them, and there's not an endless supply. There's a pretty big supply of lithium, and like Hindu Kush mountains and here and there in the world, but just like oil, it's
a finite amount though, right?
So it's interesting, like so like figuring out these elements is like crucial for the long-term survival of humanity, because like nothing that we found so far, it's like I know that like Elon Musk he's almost a little bit arrogant about what he thinks he knows for sure, but I mean he's definitely the forefront right now with Tesla on the solar battery powered energy and this and that, and like his opinion is that it does not appear right now that they can create a longer lasting battery than like where they're at right now. He thinks that they're about pushing the absolute limit. He's probably not 100% correct, because some smart guy will come out and push a little more this or that.
Yeah, but that's a good point, because at some point a battery is not the sufficient method anymore, right? There's got to be something beyond the battery that is more sufficient long term, and its waste that it gives is minimal, right, to the environment. And so when you have like element 115 that decays rather quickly, and it decays into like radioactive material, just like everything else does, right? And like a banana is radioactive when it decays. And so,
well, I mean, I hate to bring it back to the future, but Mr. Fusion kind of already tapped into this.
The banana and a little bit of beer from the trash can. I think you
could throw that in there.
And he fucking threw the can too. I mean, there we have it. We don't need batteries.
What's kind of interesting what you're saying, is the give and take of like your example. Ironically, in quantum mechanics, which is part of this discussion with element 115, is that at least to our understanding, if you want to locate a particle in your reality, then the more you know about its location, the less you know about where it's going, and vice versa. The more you know about where it's going, the less you know about its location. So its position and its where it's going is inversely proportional in some sense. And so like there's always this give and take. I feel like yin and yang balance of reality, whatever it is that you're dealing with, whether it be with the science or your example with the efficiency of the ammo. I think in many aspects, we have to consider that. And with this element 115, Mr. Bob over there was saying earlier, hey, it can provide a lot of promise, but there's also a lot of dangers with it too, right?
With great power comes great responsibility.
Hey, you're a Marvel guy, dude.
Huh?
That's Marvel right there, dude.
Is it Spider-Man?
Yeah.
I thought that was from something else.
Yeah, I thought that was fucking Splinter from the Ninja Turtles. I said it like Splinter.
Peter Parker's dad or uncle says it to him right before he like goes to that show and he gets schwackered.
Oh, that's right. Fuck.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Two.